You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 272. Stepping Up Your CEO Game, a client case study with Tim Clothier, Part 2. Update. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies to improve time management, elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm excited about this episode because you get to meet our guest, Tim Clothier, who is a private coaching client of mine. As CEO of Illusion Projects for over 14 years, Tim and his team have collaborated extensively on projects with industry leaders such as Meow Wolf, Caesars Entertainment, Blue Man Group, Royal Caribbean, and Circus Olay, winning the Addy Award for Best Out-of-Home Installation Design in 2017 and 2018. Tim produced the successful Stratosphere Hotel experience, Dr. Havoc's Sideshow of Curiosities. He has created interactive exhibitions for the international tours of the Avengers Station exhibit and Jurassic World, the exhibition. Partnering with Mattel, Tim created and produced Barbie, a cultural icon exhibition for the Las Vegas residency, followed by a national tour in 2023. Tim's creative style and expertise in constructing a whole vision narrative is regularly sought after by brands including Audi and Intel, celebrities such as David Copperfield and Mike Tyson, Broadway shows and museums, exhibitions, and top theme parks. Tim is a designer, producer, consultant, writer, and speaker. He is a husband and proud father, and he's also pretty good at loading the dishwasher. Tim and I have been working together for over 7 years. If you haven't already listened to episode 271 from last week, I want you to hit pause on this episode and go on over and listen to episode 271 first. That episode was a recording from 4 years ago, 3 years into our coaching relationship. In that episode, it dives into Tim's entrepreneurial journey, his struggles with productivity, time management, delegating, and how he improved those areas, grew his company, and achieved success. It also gives you an in-depth look at our coaching relationship then and how we partnered together to help Tim reach his number one goal of becoming a better, more efficient business owner so he could spend less time at work and more time with his family. That episode is a replay, but it's packed with so much insight and value that I just had to reshare it. Are you still with me? You went back and listened to it, or you've already listened to episode 271? All right, so let's dive into this week. This week's episode is a special update episode in which I sit down with Tim again because so much has happened in his life and business. Make that businesses plural. Since then, we dive into how Tim runs his business these days, discuss all those strategic changes we made years ago and how they panned out. And we talk about the actions he took to become successful. Take a listen, and if you can relate to Tim's story and think that private coaching with me could help you achieve your business goals, then go check out my one-on-one peak performance coaching program at amberdelagarza.com/coaching. After you've checked it out, I would love to talk to you by scheduling a discovery call. And you can do that right from the coaching page. During our discovery call, I'd love to learn about you and your business and see if we're a great fit working together. And now, let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome back, Tim. How are you?
I'm very well. We're back.
We are back with an update. I got so much feedback from our initial interview together of like the inside behind the scenes of your business and what it's like to work with me. And I thought it would be really cool to do an update.
Update
And
time.
as we were preparing for today's update, you know what we had to do?
What?
Count the years we have worked together.
We should never do that. We should not do it.
I think I grew an extra gray hair from counting the years. It just didn't seem like it could be that long, but it's been 7 years.
7 years. Wow. All right. Well, we'll just keep going.
Yes. And you get the award of the longest standing client. So congratulations.
Oh, well, I'll take it. Thank you very much.
There you go. All right, Tim. So, I mean, to say it's been such a joy to work with you and see your entrepreneurial journey is an understatement. Like, I don't even have the words to say what it's been like to, partner with you on this and just see what it is you've been able to create. And so that's the story I want to share.
Okay.
So let's start off kind of kicking off from where we left off. And we talked a little bit about thinking big enough that,
yes,
as you were in your business, working in your business, the goal was to be able to work more on your business and think bigger. Like, honestly, knowing you as well as I do, like that's, I think, what you thrive on is what's next, what's new, what's exciting, what's bigger.
Yes. I mean, so I've always joked that I get bored easily, right? And I think that that's a lot of what ended up happening. So for Think Bigger, I kept looking at what I had as a business, what I still have as a business and what we do. And we've done some amazing growth. I'm really proud of kind of what the team have done and where we grew to. And I realized that for the business that I carved out and the point in the industry that we were basically there. I couldn't see a way that it was going to get any bigger. So then I was at a crossroads and the decision was, do I grow the business, which means changing the business model now? Or do I go and start some other businesses? So in order to change the business model, if I'd gone down that path, I would have ended up having to kind of jump into a pool with a lot of more companies that are doing different type of work to what I do, but in line with it, right? But I love the fact that we've always been in this weird niche where we've done our own particular thing. We've been very good at a very specific type of work in the kind of, clients that we work for and the jobs we do. So I didn't really want to lose. I felt like I'd lose my value proposition. If I said, okay, I'm going to jump in with all the big boys now and just get, level up again, I'm going to end up having to lose what makes us us. So that wasn't a work for me, but I couldn't resist the idea of growing more. So of course it was, hey, we should start some more businesses on the side. And that's what we did. So there's, as you know, there is a multitude of different things going on at the moment and things that have gone on in the last few years since we last did a chat together. So, should we start back at the Barbie dolls?
Yes, Barbie dolls. And
because I know that comes as a left field because it's like, oh, here's the guy that makes stuff for the stage shows and the museums and the exhibitions and Disney and stuff. And now we're going to talk about toys and Barbie dolls.
And I actually want you to connect the dots for us and the listeners of when you looked at your unique skill set and your passions, how did you land with Barbies?
Okay, so I landed with Barbie dolls by accident, but let's explain what that's all about. So we were doing a lot of exhibition work, so building displays for museums and interactive exhibitions, and I really enjoyed that kind of work. And my team was really good at building those beautiful display pieces and the interactive stuff that goes with that. And I thought it'd be really fun to produce a whole exhibit from the ground up myself. So essentially being my own client, right? So if I open a production company and said, I'm going to produce an exhibit, then let's produce something. And then obviously the workshop or the project shop can build all the stuff that we need. And then as a producer and a production company, we can run that exhibit. So I thought, well, okay, let's do that. So I was looking for the kind of exhibits that would sort of fit a pop culture, fun museum kind of thing that I could then design it, build it, produce it, put it into a venue and get it running. At the same time, I went to a convention and I managed to sort of accidentally score a meeting with Mattel Toys. And they were there talking to people about licensing deals. And they're $1 billion company. That's a big deal. So I walked into the meeting, not really with any plans. And I just sort of sat there and chatted. And it became very, very apparent that they were looking to do an exhibition about the history of the Barbie doll. So as it turned out, I knew somebody in Vegas who had a friend with an incredible collection of historic Barbie dolls. So a friend of a friend. And as we're sitting in this meeting, Mattel are telling me that problem they've got is they don't have the collection of historic Barbie dolls to do this exhibition. So in my head, I'm putting two and two together and saying, well, hang on a minute. I know a guy. So I sat in the meeting and said, well, I mean, we produce, we build, we could do it for you. And I know somebody with the collection. So that's where that started. And that ended up with me slowly kind of meeting with Mattel multiple times, carving out what I would like to do as a history exhibition about Barbie dolls. I learned a ton about it. I knew nothing about Barbie dolls, obviously. I don't have a daughter. I have a son. I've never played with them, or also parent. But now I know more than most 44-year-old men should ever have to know about Barbie dolls. And I said to Mattel, yeah, I think I can do this. So we made a deal. So I ended up making a licensing deal with Mattel for the only North American history exhibition about the history of the Barbie doll. Then I had to go and deliver on that. So first it was like negotiate a contract to do it. And then it was, oh my goodness, I've just agreed to do something that I've now got to go and deliver on, which was a Herculean task. That was epically big.
Big. And
yes,
while you had been making pivots and changes and growth in the business, it was never to abruptly go start a business after one meeting. So
I just happened to be right place, right time and said, let's do it. And we just went for it. So, and I say it like that because it's easy to look back. I mean, we're going back a couple of years now. So it's easy to look back and say, oh yeah, I just went for it. I mean, me just going for it meant I had to pull a team together, had to write a pitch deck, had to get it approved, had to get Mattel to agree to it, had to carve out, had to bring my lawyer in. The lawyer did an amazing job. We both know Jamie. Jamie did an amazing job putting the contract together for that. We had to go through, well, it took months to do all this stuff, and it was a huge deal to put it all together. And then I had to actually get the workshop together and design and build and produce this whole thing. It took us probably, I think, 9 months from start to finish, and we were going like the clappers. So that is a really tight timeline for something like that. And my workshop ended up the last 2 months, our shop was spending 100% of their time on that project, just entirely on that. So the Barbie doll exhibition opened at the Shops at Crystals on the Las Vegas Strip in October of 2021, I guess it must have been. Yeah, 21. And it ran for 14 months on the Strip. Thousands and thousands of people came to see it. I was so proud. It was awesome. And it is now going to be going on tour. So it's come off the Strip, and we're in preparations for it to go and tour the US. So it'll tour the US. It might pop up into Canada, and there's even some talk of going out to Europe with it. So it's turned into a whole second business on the side that I didn't know I was going to have, and now I do.
And it's amazing. And so let's just take it from the perspective of you built a team that was in addition to your current business, like
Correct.
overnight, a team of contractors.
Yep.
And without going down a whole, like a rabbit hole, like that was a whole skill set of working with a whole new team in a different capacity, in a different relationship. You're moving fast. And I just want to speak, what are some things that you learned through that experience that you'll take into other endeavors?
So there's a really big came up out of that. So first was, to be honest, there was a bit of me, well, can we do this or not? And the way to find out was to try and do it, right? And I was pretty confident, but there were some moments that were a bit shaky through that process. Second was the building of the team. So there's actually really two teams that are involved in that. So you've got my team. So I brought in freelance contractors. So it's a museum exhibit. I needed a curator. I needed experts to come and do research. I needed a writer. I needed graphic designers. I found all these people, and they are amazing people. I've got great people that I can now go back to for future projects that were worked on this. And I put that team together. I got them running, but also I had to have the Mattel side of it. So now I've got to get the company that's doing the licensing to approve everything that we are designing, producing, and they approve everything from the color to the shape and size of the displays to the content, every written word. It all had to go through that. So I sort of had a Mattel team who were also incredible, that were our kind of main points of contact, that were in charge of kind of watching over all the work we're doing and then approving it all for us so that it could go through brand approvals and marketing approvals with Mattel, and kind of working with this giant corporate juggernaut, right, to get all this stuff to happen. So my team is small and nimble, and we can move quickly. The Mattel team is humongous and cannot move fast at all because they're corporate, and that's how that works. So I really learned a lot about that kind of dealing with that corporate machine that I'd never really experienced before. I mean, we're in business, so we don't have to be part of that corporate machine. And now I'm having to deal with it. So
Right.
it was definitely a eye-opening experience, right? To go through that whole thing. And then I think also from our point of view, so the work that I've always done in theater and exhibition and theme park, it's always been, I'll often design it and build it here in the shop with the team, and it goes to the client. And then the client's customer is the guest, right? The person that walks in off the street, pays their hard-earned money to come and experience the show or go in the exhibition or in the theme park or whatever it is. So I've always said to my team, to really make them remember, it's the customer of our customer is the person we're trying to do this for, right? Whereas in this case, my customers are the people that are buying tickets and going to the Barbie exhibition. So I've now removed a middle person out of that equation, and I'm directly responsible for creating the thing that the people are going to walk off the street, spend their hard-earned money to come and see and come and do, which is a whole different ball game. And honestly, really scary, but also because outside of my comfort zone, all that stuff, but super fun. I absolutely loved it because I would go and walk around the Barbie exhibition when it was running on the strip. And I'm watching families and kids, and there's a car in there. We have a life-size Barbie Corvette in the exhibition. These kids jumping in the car and playing in that, or, mothers going with their daughters and then pointing out the doll that they had when they were a kid to their daughter, all this stuff. Fantastic. And it reminds you why you do this in the first place, right? So
Yes.
So for me, there was a therapeutic part to this whole thing where I'm kind of, once I got through it, reminded of really why we get up every day and do what we do. Because it's those people for those moments and that's happiness that they can have, or that something they'll learn or whatever it is they'll do. Those, normally I don't get to experience that in such a close connection. Normally I'm one stage removed.
Right,
so
right. When it felt hard, I remember us talking about that. You're like, but this is like what I'm tied to, is this creating this experience and this for the people. And that was really what lit you up about it. In addition to, I know you loved a new challenge, and I know you loved something new, right?
Yes.
So okay.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the important thing about that as well is that it was the framework of that was the exhibition, the experience that we could bring and what we could do for those guests. It wasn't that it was about Barbie dolls. Barbie was the vehicle, if you will. And we're now obviously that is now growing into new business and other exhibitions on top of that are not Barbie doll based. It just that happened to be the first one. And it was very much a trial by fire. And it was, as usual for me, I picked the hardest thing to do first. But why not, at the end of the day. And I knew I was mad, and I knew that everyone else thought I was mad, but I really felt like we could pull it off. And so I'll tell you one funny story about that. So we opened it, and then around Christmas, it opened in October. Around Christmas, the head of location-based entertainment for Mattel came into town, and her and I went out for dinner. We actually went for dinner at Mastro's. Anyone that knows Crystals, Mastro's is a restaurant in the middle of Crystals, and it actually looks right across at the Barbie exhibition when it was there. So we sat there and we could see the whole exhibition that we'd produced. And I had dinner with her. And basically what she said was that they really didn't think I was going to pull it off. So internally at Mattel, they were sort of going along with it. But I think internally at Mattel, there was a lot of questions of like, is he really going to actually bring this to the finish line? So, great. I took the compliment. I mean, they were shocked that it happened, and it happened. So it was.
That is so funny. That, because you don't usually get to hear those inside conversations or voices. Yeah. So I want to actually just talk about and explore that you went into this meeting. You kind of knew you wanted to do something new, but almost immediately you had to make plans for this business, meaning you had to make sure that you still had time for your highest value activities. And anyone that's been a listener of Productivity Straight Talk, that's what we talk about. Yep. What I found to be so interesting was that it forced you to get so clear on what your highest value activities were for Illusion projects so that you could come in, do that, support the business, but also create the time and space to go explore this other opportunity.
Yes. So the exhibition business, which, came around really quickly, I had to run that at the same time as running the other business. Now, we were already making strides in the right direction, but that just lit the fire. I mean, that absolutely forced us. It was do or die, right? And it had to work. And honestly, so a couple of things that really worked out of that. So one was obviously having Trevor as a production manager and being able to rely on my right-hand person 110% was golden, right? He is on top of it, running the shop, getting it done. And that really, really worked. So that was the first thing. So without that I don't think I could have done it without him. And Jill, as kind of her role has grown. We talked about her in the last podcast when we hired Jill. So Jill really is in a sort of management type position at this point. So she now runs certain sections of the company. So between her and Trevor, they are running the majority of front end and back end of the fabrication business for the most part. I'm still around, obviously, but without those two there doing those things, I would not have had the time to spend many hours with my Barbie creative team doing the exhibition production, to work with the time that it took with Mattel and their team to get everything done. There's no way we could have done it. It just would have been
So when we think of our high value activities, one of the areas is obviously sales, right? And for many small businesses, the business owner is doing the primary sales unless there's a sales team. And at the time of the last recording, it was you. And so talk to us about how that had to shift a little bit so that you reclaim time, but also ensure that you kept a healthy business with sales.
So sales, that absolutely right. That was me. So what we did was we started really slowly. We realized that Trevor would be really good for sales, particularly inbound sales, right? So Jill is very good for outbound sales. So what we decided was that the best way to do it is over time, I would slowly hand my clients over to Trevor, and I would sort of get them used to him being the point of contact. Now, for old time clients, that's really hard to do. Newer clients, it's easy. New client comes in, then if they come straight to me, then I introduce them to Trevor, and then he sort of takes it from there. Some clients now don't even know who I am, and they only know Trevor. So we've got to a really good place with that. Kind of where we got to now and how we got to that point was, as he's now been able to handle more of that inbound sales stuff, he's now at a point where he needs extra help, like I needed extra help in order to do, because his job has become overloaded, right? Which then became the point where we started getting him meeting with you, because we realized that he needed to be time blocking better and to be doing his schedule better. So
and Trevor delegating and asking for help and all the things. Yep.
All of that. So now Trevor and I both run time block schedules, and we can look at each other's schedules and know what each other's doing at any given time. And Trevor now handles probably the majority of our inbound sales. So I don't really do that much anymore. I've got a few clients that I'll deal with, but for the most part, it's really not me anymore.
Yeah. I just want to pull that back a little bit for our listeners and say, Tim and myself and Trevor, we really identified that him spending so much time in sales was a bottleneck to him being able to go do other things within the company and also explore other opportunities. And so it wasn't just like, hey, so I'm not doing sales, I got to cut back. This was like strategic conversation after strategic conversation, to the point that, and you kind of said it so quickly, so I just want to pull back. I mean, you guys had a list of clients where you're like, okay, so now we'll build this relationship and migrate it over, and then this relationship. Because what was a priority was the relationship, the transition, that Trevor was completely prepared to handle the whole situation. And so this was a whole migration so that you can be pulled out of a lot of the sales.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that is not a fast process. It's easy. We talk about it now, years afterwards, but it probably took 18 months of time, and when we were first producing Barbie, we were probably we were in the middle of that transition at the same time. We were just still doing it, and we're still doing it, even to this day. But for the most part now, I mean, today is Monday, but I was away Thursday and Friday last week on some business stuff. and everything was still running. And I come back and I don't even know what. I walked around my own workshop and I'm like, what is this job? What are we doing? Oh, turns out we're doing the Taylor Swift tour. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So which is fantastic. And it's one of those things that, so here's the thing. At first, that really is tough on the ego. That's really tough. It's, as a business owner, you're like, oh, you want to be the hero on all this stuff, right? So there was some work there that I had to go through to kind of not have issues with that or sabotage it. Sometimes you get, I don't know, you want to be the one that made the sale and did the thing. So, you end up screwing it up because you want it to be you. So there is a period of time where you've got to kind of go through this reality check and suddenly find that there's so much value and pleasure in seeing the team do it rather than me do it. So when I go through the workshop now, obviously some of the jobs I know what's going on. It's not like I don't know what's going on in my own shop, but what's exciting is when I find out that we're working on a concert tour or we're working on a show or some other cruise ship thing that I didn't really hear about until the job was closed. So they went out and they did the job and they did this, made the sale and they closed the business and they're now, it's in design, and I might poke my head in and check in on the design and say, well, maybe it could be this or maybe it could be that, and they'll tell me to screw off and leave them alone, but these are great. This is what it's what you know you should have and it's what you think you want. But even when you get it, it can take a while to get used to that because I was so used to being the whole thing. Now
I'm so glad you're speaking to that because it actually reminds me of when the first transition was getting you out of the workshop. That's where you wanted to be in there and be the hero of fixing the problems and answering the questions and being available and supporting your team. And that was the first thing that we were like, okay, well, what does the next version of you look like in your business as a CEO? And it was definitely coming out of the workshop more. And then it's almost like you did it again with so many other areas. We're going to talk about a couple more, but like with sales, like you're saying, is you had to reimagine how you're serving the business, what your role is.
Yep.
Okay, that's great. Which brings us to, since we're doing a follow-up, design. Now, this entire business was created because of your unique skill set of designing. And I want to say that again. This entire business was created because of your unique skill set of design. And I think for 6.5 years, I've been telling you that was going to be the thing that would bottleneck you if we didn't find a solution, right? In some version of that.
Yep.
And you have found a solution. I want to share this because I feel like we've graduated together to another level.
Yeah. That, you know what? That was not an easy solve. So here's the dilemma. Like so many other people, we talked about this in the last podcast, it's a creative-based business. So you are the creator, the artist, whatever, you're the one that starts it. And then you realize now if you want to scale, you can't duplicate yourself anymore because it's still you at the end of the day. So that puts you in a real quandary because the design work that I did was the value proposition that the business was built upon. So if you take me out, then that value proposition's gone. And now the business falls down into a tier with a bunch of other businesses where it just becomes a commodity thing. Then it's like, who can do it the fastest, the cheapest, and we don't care about the rest of it. And then, nobody wants to be in that business. I would never want to be competing on price and speed. Right? That's not what it's certainly not for the kind of thing I do. So I knew for the longest time that this was a big, big problem. And we tried different solves and I never really found an exact solve for a long, long time. And it turned out that the solve and the transition, which is a slow and still ongoing transition, was a couple things. So one, for me to rethink my role when it came to design. And then second, to allow Trevor to grow into his design role, which he's incredibly good, very capable. And because he's been with me so long, and if you ask me how many years, I won't know because I don't think about that, but it's been a long time, longer than we've been working together.
Yep.
And he's been there so long that he does it the same way that I do it because he's been dealing with it.
You mentored him. Mm-hmm.
So So Trevor's basically taken over the bulk of the design. And that's also like that thing where you're used to being the guy and the one that always saves the day. And then you've got to let it go and you've got to kind of let the children jump out the nest and fly by themselves, right? And it's scary as hell. And it wasn't something where we went, okay, starting Tuesday, it was one here, one there, then it'd be 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. And it just got more and more and more. But also, there was another part to that, which was that it was important for me to work out where his strengths were so that we were selling jobs based on his design strengths rather than selling the job and then him, being out of or into something that he wasn't, used to or wasn't the best fit. So I had to rethink a little bit from a sales perspective. And because he was doing the bulk of the sales, that's great because he understands what he's good at. So when he's making the sale, he can really talk to what's doable, what's possible with the client. So we started that transition and we've been ongoing. So now what happens is I am like a design freelancer for my own company, not in pay structure, but as far as if they sell a job that they think I'm the right person to design it, then they book it with me to do the design work and I do the design work and hand it back to the shop again. So it's sort of like, realistically, I could do remotely. I don't because I love coming in, but it's now at a point where it's not just me designing all the stuff that needs to get designed. It is me only taking the design work that they ask me to take because it's the things they need me to do. So I'm like an employee.
Yes, but it's amazing because that one shift of a solution coming up with that strategy was letting you see what was possible, but knowing that you could handle the exception. I think for a long time, and I could be misspeaking, it was like, it couldn't happen because I can only do these things.
Yeah.
And then you flipped it and said, actually, all of this can be done except maybe some exceptions. And so I'll come in as a freelancer. And just by flipping how you were looking at it gave you an opportunity to come up with a different solution, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been working very well. I'm pleased to report.
Yes.
So, all of that stuff has been worthwhile doing. And I think I can't stress enough that here's what I've learned. No matter what it is you want to do in those transitions, it will take you longer than you think it's going to take you. But that's all right. Because still, as long as we're getting there, as long as we're moving forwards, we do. And at this point, I'm really proud of how it's all running. I'm really proud that we've been able to do that. And because we've done that, that's opened up the space for me to be able to do these other ventures. I couldn't have done... Okay, I'll tell you this story. So I thought about opening another business about 5 years ago. And I think I said to my wife, hey, I'm thinking about opening a second business. And I talked about it a little bit, kind of along the lines of what we're doing now. And I think she basically went white in the face and said, there's no way. Because you already work, I don't know how many hours a week I was doing, 60, 70 hours a week, whatever. You already work all that. So now in her head, she goes, well, you do 70 hours a week. How are you going to do 140 hours a week? Because if you open a second business, it just doubles, doesn't it? There's no way that can be done. So she was not on board 5 years ago. And quite rightly so, because she's way smarter than I am. And I think that she was right. Now she's all about it. So she's absolutely on board with what we're doing right now. She's incredibly supportive. And she's right that at the time it wasn't right because our structure wasn't there. Now the structure is there and it's ever evolving. But because we have that structure, we can now, keep Illusion projects running, and I can now grow the exhibition business, which is exactly what we're doing, and keep going in that direction. I have the time to do it. I have the availability. I have the bandwidth to get creative and come up with new ideas, to think bigger, to go, what can we do? What's the next big thing? I have that time now. I have that space, and I can make that space for those things without the whole machine crumbling to pieces behind me if I take my eyes off of it for a second.
Yes. That was so well said. What's coming up for me as you're telling this story is like, which came first? Because if you didn't have this big dream, this big thought of what's next for you or these businesses and these opportunities, would you have been as motivated to find solutions for someone else to help with the sales, someone else to help with the shop, someone else to help with design? And yet you needed those solutions to even be able to make the dreams a reality. But I feel like without that dream, we can sometimes get stuck in the day-to-day of working in the business and not on the business, right? Like there's no big deadline of like, this is a thing that has to be solved.
Yeah. So it's a chicken egg thing, isn't it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I've worked out, I think you may have said this. I don't know. Somebody was talking about this, but I've worked out now what this is part of my personality. So I thought that the mission in business was to get it running super smooth so I could sit back and relax and not have to worry about it and let it just run. I thought that was the mission. I didn't realize that the way I operate is that as soon as it starts to smooth, I'll drop a new bomb that we all have to deal with. So that's what all this is about. So the chicken egg answer is this, is that we start to smooth it out. We say, okay, sales will do this, design will do that. We'll get these things running. And we're in the process of getting those done. So to accelerate and make sure that those are absolutely going to happen, I'll then just open another business or do something else or try and buy a business, which is also going on at the moment. So I will just drop something crazy into the mix that will then mean do or die. We absolutely have to achieve this thing now because I've now put something else in there that we absolutely are going to do. And now the path has been set. It's sort of, I think of it like we let the train out of the station. It's going. It's heading down the tracks, whether we like it or not. So now we have to deal with it.
Yes. And with some guidelines, though. So what's different for you is it wasn't do or die, figure it out 70 hours a week, 7 days a week anymore. You said do or die. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure it out as a team. And what are your non-negotiables? And that's probably why Holly is on board with this, is because you've honored those non-negotiables.
And they are still, with all the stuff we're doing at the moment, still the same. So I still pick Oliver up from school and do the school run where I'm home in the evenings. We have dinner together every night. We can go, I think we did more vacations last year than we've ever done before. And, all of those things are still working. And, I mean, Oliver's 11 now. He's 11. So we do I've got all the extracurricular activities, right? So we do fencing class and parkour class. I take him to all those things. Holly doesn't have to. She doesn't need to. So I get to be dad and go and do all those things. And we're still able to carve out time to do this. So I think if anything, I'd like to sort of point out that that's possible. Because I think for me at one point, that didn't even seem like a feasible or possible option that I could run the business and be a father and do all those things. I'd be a husband and be around. I didn't think those two were compatible. And I think we've now proof of concept for long enough at this point that I can confidently say I do both those things. So I run my business, I grow new businesses, and I am a dad, and I'm a husband, and I'm there. I'm present. When I go home, I'm present. You know what? When I go home, I turn my ringer off on my phone. And if business calls, I can wait till the next day because I'm at home and we're doing family stuff. So
I just wiped a tear of joy out of my eyes, Tim. Like, I swear my voice is crackling. Like, that is the thing that makes me the happiest, is that what you just said with so much conviction is the through thread of a lot of the work that we have done. And, I will say that there are times where I'll say, how are you sleeping? How's Tim? Are you eating? Are you still exercising? How's family? Like, you want to go 100 miles an hour with the other stuff going on. And that's cool. There's lots of time for those conversations. And then there's just been these points in conversations together where I'll say, hold on, I'm doing a Tim check. And you have done so well at ensuring that those boundaries are not being eroded. And yet you still get to pursue all of your ideas and passions and opportunities.
It's not all easy. And just so we're clear, there's ups and downs. But for the most part, sleep pretty good, feel pretty good, go and work out with my trainer. Like, all those things still happen. And I couldn't imagine doing what we're doing in the business if I wasn't doing all those things at home,
Right.
If all those needs weren't being met, then what's the point?
What is the point?
And I've definitely had a few points in the last few years. And you know what? I think COVID did that for a lot of people, where you have to sort of sit down and reevaluate, what am I doing here? Where am I going? And for me, it was, if I'm going to work in my business and on my business and do new businesses and grow it and all that stuff, if I'm going to do all these things, it's got to be worth it at the end. Right? Or as we go along, I say, not even at the end. This is not like get to one payday and then call it a day. This is the journey. So it's got to be worth it. So if it's not worth it, then what are we doing? What are we doing? I tried right after COVID. I thought, well, let me see if I can work remotely. I thought I'll give that a go just to try it out. So it turns out we can. I ran the business for over a month remotely, but I was really sad because I was not around people.
And that is not the hypothesis any of us had. Like when you said, I'm going to go do this as an experiment, and we talked out what does that look like and what needs to be covered and what can change. Nobody on your team or myself or yourself expected that you'd come back and say, actually, I'm miserable. That is not the goal, is to work remotely.
And from a technical standpoint, it worked great. So all the stuff we had in place worked fantastic. Proof of concept, brilliant. I rented a house in Portland. We set up there and I just lived there for a month. But here's the thing. I realized that during the day, I'll get up from my desk and I'll go and see Jill. How's it going? I'll go and see Mariana in the front office. I'll go around the corner, I'll go poke in on Trevor. I'll just go and talk to people and see what's going on. And I was so lonely. There's nobody there. It was just me by myself. Oliver would go out with Holly and they go out and do stuff in Portland and I'm just sitting by myself. It was miserable. So not for me, but that's not the point. My point is that it was proof of concept. Can the business run if I'm away? Yes, it can. Which then meant, can we go on vacation? Ooh, yes, we can. So that led to Christmas in Hawaii. That led to vacations away, going back to England, seeing my family for longer than I ever have before. It led to all those things that we've done in the last couple of years for going away on vacations. Even while I've got this craziness going on with the exhibition company, I've got my regular Illusion project stuff, I've got other big vision things I'm working on. So, it's been really nice to be able to take time off and go on vacation and come back to things having moved forwards and the team having done all these things without me having to feel like I'm on the phone every 2 minutes while I'm away.
Right. Because you got yourself out of the firefighter method, like the firefighter mode, because you have a team in place, you have systems, you have processes. And so there's not that I have to be tied to the phone. I have to be tied to my email, tied to my desk. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I want to just transition to, because this is all amazing. We haven't even touched the iceberg. We should probably have done an update sooner than a couple of years. But I wanted to ask you, what are some of the fundamental strategies that you have held on to ensure that this was possible with your time?
Okay. I'm going to say it quickly. We still do Power Hour and I fucking hate it.
Okay. Okay. But you still do it.
I hate it.
So why do you hate it? Like
it's
you
all
gotta tell us. Everyone wants to know who's listened to the last episode. Why does he hate Power Hours? I said this in the last
episode too. It's all the things I don't want to do wrapped up into one horrible hour. But here's the thing. Then I feel great afterwards. I said this last time. It's still the same. I still do it. Jill and I still do it. It is everything from clients I don't want to deal with, emails I don't want to write, financial stuff I don't want to have to go and deal with, anything that is. It's like having a garbage can in the corner that during the week you throw all the stuff in that you don't want to deal with. And then for 1 hour, somebody comes in and dumps that garbage can on your desk and says, right, here we go. And you have to do it, So everything goes into Power Hour that I don't want to do. It's even tidy my desk. So if my desk gets a little untidy, and my desk doesn't get too bad, but I am, a little bit of I like things around. Even things like that. Jill will come in and say, your office needs to be tidied. It's like your mother coming in. Come tidy your bedroom. Tidy your bedroom.
Yes. I actually want to dive into that really quick because I do believe that some people are like, well, I don't like doing Power Hours or I don't have enough self-accountability because I hate it so much. So share with us how Jill is helping support you to show up to have garbage dumped on your head.
So she schedules it, not me. You know what it is? It's all about accountability. And we've worked out how to hack me as to how I operate, right? Mm-hmm. So she puts it on the schedule, not me. And then when Power Hour, half the time I don't even realize it's coming because I'll ignore it. And then she turns up, she comes in the office, she closes the door, she sits on the chair with a pile of papers, she slams it down on the desk and says it's Power Hour time. And I'll look at the calendar and be like, oh God, really? Didn't even try to ignore that was happening today. And then she just one at a time. And we do it, we kind of do it together in the same way that it is. I'm going to go back to the gym analogy. It's exactly the same as my trainer. It's exactly the same, honestly. My trainer and I train together, but he doesn't run like I do. That guy's lazy. He stands there and yells for me to do it all. And it's the same thing. She doesn't do it. She stands there and says, right, this one. And she has a list And then I'll do that one and say, right, is it done? Yes, it's done. Right off the list. And it sucks, but then it's done.
It's
and
done. Yes. And so I love that you were able to utilize your team members to support your gaps, or how you said to, hack you.
Yep.
I think more people need to hear that, because when we have a strategy that's not working for us and we say, well, it should look like this. This is how I should do a power hour. I should just be disciplined, put it on my calendar, show up and be happy about it. No. You said, okay, I can see it's valid. It's helping my business. It helps my time, but I need some support with it. And you built in that support. And I think that's beautiful.
I would say this too, and this might be useful, is that when I did my experiment working remotely, we still did it. So it was a Zoom call. So she sat on Zoom and went through the damn list on Zoom.
You thought you could get away from her?
Yeah. Even going away didn't work. So
Right.
it works. You don't have to have somebody right there. It works remotely, but she is very, very good at being persistent. And that's obviously it's one of her talents, to be honest. So we use that in a way that gets that done. What it means is, it means that those things you don't want to do don't linger until now it's too late to do them.
Yeah.
So I have a habit that if I don't want to do something, I put it off, and then I forget about it, and I put it off to the point where it's now past the time at which it needed to get dealt with, right? So either it had a due date and I've missed the date now, or something else, or I, really had to deal with that in a certain time frame. So it stops those things from collecting and just gets them out the system.
Yeah. And another one, it also reduces fires because you're staying on top of it. Some things without a deadline, they still need to be done, but now it's at somebody else's timeline or some other person's convenience. And so it wasn't when you could control scheduling it in and doing it when you needed to do it, or wanted to do it rather.
Stop talking about it now because I still hate it.
Okay, fine. I'll let you hate it. I'm proud of you for showing up to it. And there's a lot of benefits. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was your time blocking. I know that's one of your foundations to making this all work. I want you to share a little bit about, for those of you that are hearing this, you can tell 6 months ago is not the same as 3 months ago, as the same as probably last month for Tim. So how do you make time blocking work when really your role changes, your priorities are changing so quick and fast?
So, a couple things that I think we touched on some of this last time, but it's still very much true. It's an ever moving, changing document. So it changes by the day. And I don't mean that we're doing it reactively. It means I can look right now on the time blocking schedule and I can look a month out and see what's going on. However, by the time I get there, other things will have happened and they'll be slotted in and moved, and then we'll move an appointment and stuff like that. What it does mean is that when it gets really busy, if we need to move appointments, we can see ahead of time that that's coming up, as opposed to suddenly last minute having to cancel on somebody or do something like that. So this morning we just talked about was a good example. I had something planned for Tuesday and Wednesday that suddenly pushed itself on me for Monday morning without any warning whatsoever. And we had to completely reshuffle the schedule to make it work, which we did. And it's fine. And some things got moved, and it was quite easy for that process to happen. The thing about it, though, is because now I'm running, so several things going on. I'm running Illusion projects for the most part, although really the team is running most of that. Then I start the exhibition business I start growing at. Then I also decided a few months ago that I was going to try and buy out another business, which is a whole nother beast unto itself. I did that because I wanted to see if I could do it. It was absolutely me poking the bear. I said, I've never bought a business before. I think I'll just see if I can try that. So I decided to give it a go. And it's in process at the moment. And as I said to you at the very beginning, when we decided down that path, I said, look, I don't know if I'll succeed or if I'll fail at this. However, if I fail, it won't be for lack of effort. So what I did was I decided to throw myself into that and make time to learn about buying a business. I hired a consultant to teach me about how to pull investment partners in and all the other sort of structural things I was going to need to do. This was not a small deal. This is a big deal. And I knew I needed to learn a lot to do it. So I had to make space for that. So I decided that we would take a section of the day, that's actually at the end of the day, and that's the new business time of day. So I run my regular business up to a certain point, and it actually times out. It's when my team goes home. So my team calls it a day at about 4:15. They go about 15 minutes. We do a little meeting where we all meet at the end of the day to see how the day went. and by 4:30 they're gone. So from 4:30 is when I start my work on the other business for the business purchase or for the growth of this other exhibition business we're working on. So all that stuff happens from, at the moment, is happening from 4:30 onwards. There's a block for that. Now, when we were producing Barbie, the Barbie exhibition blocks were much bigger on the schedule, and the projects blocks were much smaller because I needed to spend a lot of my day. You couldn't do that after 4:30 every day. But now that that is produced and it's done, and that part of that project is up and running, we then were able to go back down to, okay, we just need a small amount of time and we can divvy it up that way. So that's really been the fundamental, is that I'm now looking at one schedule, but I'm looking at it for basically 3 business ventures. My old one that I've been doing for years, the new business that we're growing, and the business purchase acquisition that we're in the process of trying to do. So it's been, it works, right? I think that's the thing. It allows
nothing gets done without being put on your calendar. So when you said earlier, you alluded to that they contract me, they schedule with me when I'm going to do design. It's literally them consulting with your block schedule of when can you fit in the design time for a particular project.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So Trevor says, I've got this project coming up. I need Tim to design it. And then Jill works out how much design time it's going to take, either asking me and Trevor, and we work it out. And then she schedules those blocks on the time schedule. What's also important about that is that certain types of tasks I can do very quickly in short schedules, short blocks, and other ones I say, don't give me half an hour of design time and then pop me onto something else. I really want 2-hour and 3-hour windows for that kind of work to get a good amount of work done, because there's a ramp up into those kind of things,
Of course.
So it's important that they understand what tasks can be quickly switched onto and what tasks need the time, need a big block. What needs a big block? What needs a small block, right? In order for that to work properly.
Yeah, that's setting parameters so someone else can help you with your schedule. Here's what my preferences are. Here's when I like to take meetings. This is how I like to do my design work, as blocks of time. All of that wasn't overnight, and you may have not known what all those preferences were until you started working with a block schedule. And so that constant feedback between you and Jill has created a schedule that works really well with you. What I would say is the best descriptor of your schedule is structure with a lot of flexibility, because it changes, you move fast, but the structure of that, Jill and you are making sure that all your high value activities for all 3 businesses have an allocated time and space to it.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And it, obviously it works beautifully well. And even when we get into a snafu, something happens that we weren't expecting, then in the background, they can very quickly reshuffle the schedule and find out how to make it work. Which means that, if I'm stuck in something, I don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, I've got to go and do this thing, or I've got to call that person and reschedule that meeting, because the team have already done it. They've already said, oh, he's stuck in this thing. We know that some of the meeting's going to have to move or something else is going to have to reschedule, and they'll just do it. And they get it done. So it's nice.
Beautiful.
And then I just have to show up.
And to think there was a time when you didn't think you need an assistant. Talk about a mindset shift there. Okay, so as we close up, I just want to wrap up with one more strategy too, is the CEO time. This is one of your favorites. This is something we implemented years and years ago, was you doing CEO time. It had been showing up on a Saturday. So what does CEO time look like now, and what do your Saturdays look like now?
CEO time is now on a Thursday. It's Thursday morning.
It's huge, right?
Yes.
So it's not the outskirt. It is the prime real estate of his work week.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things in the week. So I still go off site and do it at a coffee shop. All of that stuff is basically, the structure is similar. What that meant was I wasn't doing it on a Saturday. I'll touch on 2 bits. So I wasn't doing it on a Saturday anymore. Saturdays now have become I still work on a Saturday. And we did talk about that in the last podcast, and that's my choice. But my Saturday work has changed. So now Saturday is creative time for new business ideas, and it's a very casual day for me. I do it because I like spending quiet time on Saturdays are quiet. I like the quiet time to kind of do actual work. So it's not like a CEO time where you're visioning and doing those kind of things. This is a time where you're saying, the stuff I did on Thursday, let's go and kind of research those ideas and do some actionables on Saturday with regards to some big picture idea or some other business growth thing we want to do. So I use Saturday for that time. Also, I'll have my son with me on Saturday. We'll hang out. We'll go out to lunch together. He does a parkour class in the afternoon. I take him to that. My wife is normally working on a Saturday, so it's not like I'm missing out husband time. And then, we'll go home early in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, depending on what's going on. And that's kind of it. So it is still a technical day, but if you ask, I would say I work 5.5 days a week, maybe 5.75 days a week, but it's not an essential. There was a point where if I didn't do the work on a Saturday, which was normally sales or design work, then everything would fall apart during the week because I wasn't putting those extra hours in. Now, those things are being taken care of during the week. So Saturdays are a little bit more of a casual, free-form way of operating, which is lovely.
Yeah, so, essentially you went from deadline-driven tasks to tasks that you're creating a deadline for. They're things that you are looking to pursue to work on the business, not in the business.
Absolutely. So Saturday's a lovely day for that. So CEO time now has been really interesting in the last few months because now we've got, sometimes Trevor will come and meet me for CEO time as well. We can talk about operational issues. We can talk about big picture ideas. We can talk about structural stuff. So it's a really good time to have that kind of just the two of us to sit down and kind of look at where we're going or what we're doing. Because I also use it for kind of big picture thinking. Sometimes he'll come in for the first half and then he'll go back to the office and stay by myself. We vary it up, but essentially it is sort of a religious thing. It is on the schedule. It's one of the unmovable things on the schedule, and it happens every single week. Plus, they make really good breakfast over there. So I have breakfast from very nice, very tasty.
All right. I love to hear it. Alrighty, so I have to ask, with all that being said, you've kept with your staples. There's some really strong productivity strategies you've been using. You have explored new opportunities, new businesses. What's next for you, Tim?
Well, because I'm looking to grow new business and I'm looking to acquire other businesses, I realized that as the CEO of my current company, I was going to become less and less effective at leading that. And the obvious kind of transition was that I would eventually step down from my role as CEO and Trevor would take over running this company so that I could then focus on running the new companies while this company continued to run. So we were working out on a job and we were driving back, just him and I just sort of pitched the idea. I'd been thinking about it for 6 months and hadn't said anything. And I pitched the idea to him and said, what do you think about taking over the company? And obviously, there's not just a transition in roles. There's a big financial part to that needs is part of that whole thing, right? Obviously, and what do you think about taking over? And of course, I think for him, it was a natural progression as to how his growth has gone, which is super exciting. And we both agreed that was the direction. So that we set a timeline on it, which was hilarious because you were in that meeting because he had an idea as to what he thought and I had an idea as what I thought we could do it in. And we were way apart on the timeline.
And the reason I knew you were way apart was because I coach with him and I coach with you separately. Yes. And I brought it up because it was like marriage counseling. I was like, they don't know that they are so far off on this plan. And it was still early on. And so I knew that needed to be the thing that you guys got on the same page with was what is the transition plan timeline? Yes.
So we've now aligned on that for the most part. But it is definitely one of those things where, I've sort of set another train in motion. Another train has left the station. That train is now on its way. And we are in the process of kind of restructuring slowly. I know it's going to take time and you can't just flick a switch and do it. But we're restructuring slowly for that to happen, where eventually, I'm sort of phasing out from running this company so I can run other companies, which is very exciting. It's like firing yourself. It's like, hey, I've served my useful time here and now I'm going to take my gold watch and move on. So
that's a good idea. They should get you a little plaque that says, thank you for your service.
So I'm going to, obviously I will still own my company, but I will then sort of step down from the majority of the running of my company so that I can run my other companies. So it's You know what it is? It's extremely exciting. I'm extremely proud that we've reached this point. It's also completely scary. And it's definitely part of that idea of just doing something ridiculously crazy. So I will never get to the point where everything is running smoothly and I can just sort of sit back and relax, because I will always do something like this to completely upset the apple cart and move everybody forwards, whether we like it or not. So that's
well, at least you know yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun though, isn't it?
Yes. And I just wanted to just share my part of that story, my perspective. So we come to a meeting and we come to our coaching session, and you tell me you told him, coming back from a job. And I remember just having like one of those like ear to ear shitty grins, and you're just telling me, and I was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I've seen the writing on the wall. Like, I don't hold my tongue often. And I had known this was happening. Like you didn't say anything, but I knew when the time was right, like that was the natural progression. But that's actually such a compliment, because you have been setting the groundwork while you're chasing your dreams, that this was the next step, because without knowing it, or maybe with knowing it, you've been building this for years to happen this way.
Yeah, I think it's because it was in the back of my head for so long. And that, that's one of the things that came up at CEO time when I've been think bigger, all those kind of things. Where do we go? Then it became apparent that was kind of the formula that I needed to do. But because I've been thinking about it for 6 months, I suppose I'd been behaving in a way that was leading down that path, even though I hadn't really said it out loud yet. Now I've said it out loud. So now we're doing it. Now it's really happening.
To use your own words, the train has left the station.
Yes. It's on its way, whether we like it or not. The question is, are we driving the train, or are we tied to the track with a piece of rope? So we'll find out.
You are driving the train, Tim.
I think so.
All right.
Well, it'll be exciting. I promise that, if nothing else.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much for sharing with us an update and just the insight. Like, I feel that this interview with you gave such an insight into inner workings of a business owner and what the challenges are and the strategies and the pivoting and the long game. And, I'm just summarizing this and like tying this all to this like bigger goal, and then how that shows up every day, all the way down to your miserable power hours, your block schedule, your CEO time, the way you lead your team, the way you've learned how to delegate. All of this day in and day out is what's leading to these bigger opportunities and places that you're going. So thank you for sharing with us all of that.
It sounds so much excitement when you put it all into one podcast. But when we're doing it every day, it doesn't seem quite as crazy. And then you say it all in one sentence and go, goodness gracious, what have we done?
Right. Well, I do text you every once in a while, like, okay, you left me on a cliffhanger. Where are we at with this story? Because 2 weeks is like an eternity between our sessions sometimes when we're right. I mean, like you're right in the middle of something and there's not a closed loop. I can't even wait to hear the update on our next session.
It's like a soap opera, isn't it? Yes. It's like a soap opera. See what's coming next.
That's right. Well, all right. Thank you so much for serving the listeners of Productivity Straight Talk. And thank you for being such an amazing client. I enjoy working with you so much. You and your team. I enjoy working with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
I have loved having you listen to Productivity Straight Talk. And I sure hope you found Tim's update interview valuable. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So go take action today. If you're anything like Tim and you know you need help with your productivity, time management, business systems, team building, strategic decision-making, or mindset, one small action you can take in the right direction is to do what Tim did and explore what getting coaching support could do for you and your business. And the best way to do that is by scheduling a discovery call with me. I invite you to do so by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/call. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.